NFL scouting combine is in full swing, and the Ravens met with an elite defensive line prospect.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And now the #1 sports podcast network. Appreciate everybody for being here on this Locked On Ravens PM edition of the show, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We have 5 days a week of daily Ravens coverage here on Locked On Ravens. We have it twice per day, of course, with our regular show Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time, and on Locked On Ravens PM here, 6 p.m. Eastern time, giving you that double dose of daily Ravens coverage. Today, we're going to be talking about the Ravens meeting with an elite defensive line prospect, as was revealed by said defensive line prospect. And hey, he has a lot of praise for the Ravens as well, so we'll talk about that, and then we'll also dive into a telling Isaiah Likely update being revealed, more so talking about how the Ravens could replace Isaiah Likely in this offense, assuming he does walk out the door. Let's dive into it. Peter Woods, Clemson defensive lineman. He was up at the podium. Defensive linemen were up at the podium on Wednesday, and he revealed that he met with the Ravens yesterday. And he said, quote, "I love the Ravens. I met with them yesterday. Got a chance to sit down with Coach Espo, who's Louis Bizito, the defensive line coach there in Baltimore now, and Coach Minter, and then talked a little bit about just the critical part of it, said it'll mean a lot to him, and then said, quote, me and Nate Wiggins, we talk pretty often, and he loves the culture up there, and also talked about how Nate loves being coached hard and this, that, and the other." Peter is somebody that has been mocked to the Ravens on multiple different occasions at number 14. And honestly, to me, I'm totally cool with the Ravens making him the pick at 14. Now, I know some people vary with his grade and his ranking. Maybe a trade down would be more realistic for Peter Woods for Baltimore, because I know some people, I mean, he's widely considered a first-round pick, but there are some people who do have second-round grades on him. He's someone that, you know, over the course of his college career, he was incredible in 2024 with 3 sacks and 8.5 tackles for loss, but then did take a bit of a step back in those departments in 2025 with just 2 sacks and just 3.5 tackles for loss. Now, he attributed that to the fact that teams knew that he was awesome in 2024 and wanted to double, triple team him, et cetera. Was playing with a lot of guys, you know, on that D line. So that was interesting in its own right. But I think that Peter Woods would be a good pick for them. And he's someone that is a super powerful and explosive athlete. I think for me, he already has a really strong base and he's able to explode through that base and get into position to make plays. He's someone that is able to find splits and double teams pretty effectively. Again, like there's stuff that he can still improve on in terms of the shorter arms, right? That's something, and I know the offensive line situation where Baltimore is the shorter arms, that does kind of prevent him at times from keeping blockers out of his frame. You know, sometimes he took chances and you can see that it was almost risky and they didn't pay off at times, which is almost like the Marcus Peters situation where you're going to take risks and it's going to work sometimes, but other times it's not going to. So I think, again, he has good body awareness in terms of keeping his hands and feet together and working through those things together, which I think is good. But he is able to kind of dominate reps at times, overtake those. But I think I'm more so looking at his 2024 and banking on that opposed to his 2025. And again, like these guys are going to say a lot of good things about these organizations, but, you know, the personal aspect of it is that, look, he and Nate, that's a personal aspect of it. And it's cool to kind of hear Peter Woods talk about that. There are a lot of different conversations about where Baltimore could go. There are also a lot of different conversations about, okay, well, the Ravens, if they draft Peter Woods at 14, or if they trade back and draft Peter Woods, what does that mean for Nana Madubuike? And of course, I don't think it has correlation to me. At least I wouldn't operate that way if I were the Ravens, because I think either way, like if Nnamdi comes back, you have an awesome trio in Peter Woods, Nnamdi Madubuike, and Travis Jones alongside guys like Aeneas Peebles, et cetera. But if he doesn't come back, you already have that option and you're not kind of scrambling at the end there. I'm not trying to be reactive if I'm the Ravens. I'm trying to be proactive. And I think that is what Peter Woods would bring to the table. Now, I think if the Ravens were to draft Peter Woods in the first round, that would hopefully mean they would have already addressed some of their offensive line situation stuff, some of their edge rusher situation stuff. But, on the D line, I do think even with Nnamdi back in the fold, assuming that is the case, and again, I have no idea whether that's true or not. I just think we're just going to assume for now he is, because we're just going to do it as part of the exercise. If Nnamdi's back in the fold, I still think drafting a defensive lineman is fine. I'm open to them doing that. I'm open to them drafting a wide receiver because too much depth is better than no depth. And if the Ravens do move on from Broderick Washington, which I anticipate them doing, if Nnamdi doesn't come back, well, now you have Peter Woods and Travis Jones and Aeneas Peebles and John Jenkins. Then you can figure that out. Whereas if he does come back, hey, now you have an awesome, dominant defensive lineman alongside your really young guy. So Woods comes in, by the way, just for, stats wise, he's about 6'3", 315, and I think would be a totally fine pick for the Ravens. I am not like, okay, Peter Woods has to be the guy at 14, because there are a lot of other players to me that also could fit that bill. But I think it was cool hearing him almost essentially gush about the Ravens, talk about them, and, really have not a sense of urgency about it, but saying, hey, like, look, that'd be awesome. So Peter Woods is someone that, especially earlier in the process, there's been a lot more wide receiver at 14 buzz and other positions at 14 buzz, obviously O-line, D-line, all that. But Peter Woods was an early favorite for a lot of people in the mock draft process. I still have him is a really solid player there the Ravens could take. Again, a trade back would probably be the most ideal situation there. But it all is going to depend on how the board falls. And we do know from what Eric DeCosta talked about on the Inner Circle podcast, as well as just, his interview at the Combine. The Combine is not necessarily about, okay, all this on-field stuff, we're going to measure this. It's about those in-person meetings and getting to know these guys, not from like an off-field perspective, but from a football perspective. And, because DeCosta said they already have all that information. So being able to go out there and just talk ball with them for a couple minutes, kind of see how they tick and figure out their process, that's a really big deal. So again, like edge rusher is a big deal for the Ravens. So is offensive line, but there are other needs. Like the Ravens, you don't just like, okay, bringing in some offensive linemen, bringing in some edge rushers, all of a sudden your problems are fixed. No, you got to beef up, add more depth. And again, the Ravens are a BPA team. And if Peter Woods is the BPA on their board, I don't know if they're going to grade that out or anything, but he's a guy that could be an option for them at number 14. And there are guys all the time in the draft process that kind of shock you. And you're like, whoa, that guy went a little higher than anticipated. And again, Peter Woods, widely considered a first round guy, whether that is back half, mid round at 14, wherever it may be. But there are some people that do say, okay, maybe he's a high second rounder. I'm not sure Baltimore is going from 14 all the way back to the beginning of the second round, but maybe if Peter Woods is available and they have a couple other guys on their board they really like there, maybe they can move back, acquire some more picks, and then move up in the second or third round with those extra added picks. Because again, I don't want to see them draft double-digit guys this year. So there are a bunch of different strategies, but Peter Woods is someone I'm really intrigued by. Coming up in the second part of the show, we'll dive into a telling Isaiah Likely update being revealed, as well as how the Ravens could replace Isaiah if he walks out the door. Stay tuned, plenty coming up on the show. First, the show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Welcome to the 5 Hour Energy flavor draft with 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, or Cotton Candy. There's something for everyone. The board is set, the flavor is ready, and I've got my number one pick for the 5 Hour Energy flavor draft. For me, my number one pick is definitely cherry because you got that bright, punchy taste. Plus, it's really smooth and easy to recognize as well. But a sleeper option for me, it is definitely Confetti Craze because you get a sweet birthday cake inspired flavor. And there are notes of vanilla frosting and sugary sprinkles in there, which, hey, you're never going to have me say no to that. So that's a really awesome flavor. 5 Hour Energy shots give you a boost with zero sugar. 5 Hour Energy has a lot of upcoming flavor innovations planned. And for me, I'd love to see 5 Hour Energy make a starfruit flavor because I grew up loving starfruit. And I think that'd be really cool if 5 Hour Energy did that. Find your new favorite flavor of 5 Hour Energy shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. And the show is brought to you by HomeChef. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one between busy work days, cold winter nights, and packed schedules. Having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference. That's where HomeChef comes in. HomeChef takes the stress Auto Cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. And it's easy to see why. Meals come ready to fit your schedule. 30-minute recipes, oven-ready trays, or quick lunches. There are over 30 weekly options, including family-sized meals and different dietary choices. Recipes are simple but feel elevated even restaurant quality with dishes co-created by chefs like Gordon Ramsay. For a limited time, HomeChef is offering my listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/locked-on. That's homechef.com/locked-on for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. And the show is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure is on, you need the right hire. This is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. And you need the right person to cut through the chaos. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Moving along here on Locked On Ravens, on Locked On Ravens PM. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you. Thanks so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day, your first listen each and every single day. And of course, again, twice per day now on Locked On Ravens, in the morning at 6 a.m. Eastern time and in the evenings at 6 p.m. Eastern time. On top of all the other content, we give you like bonus episodes, instant reactions, as well as watch alongs, the squad show, which is coming up tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, by the way, as well as the Everyday Club over on Locked On Ravens, where you get access to exclusive one-on-one text access with me. You get access to weekly Q&As, as well as also the Discord server and ad-free episodes. There's a lot over there. So link in the description down below for that, as well as on the Locked On Ravens page on the Locked On Ravens website. But let's talk about Isaiah Likely. It's been a very hot topic of conversation. Feels like I've talked about this almost every day. But another update came out from Jordan Schultz, who is an NFL insider, and obviously the combine, yes, it is going on. And Jordan Schultz said, quote, have heard from several teams at the combine who are very high on Ravens free agent tight end Isaiah Likely and what he could do as a #1 tight end for their team. Still just 25 years old and has never played more than 60% of snaps in a season. He seems poised for a nice payday and a bigger role. So this is not a shock to me. And it's something that we've talked about over and over and over again on Locked On Ravens. And just pulling up, we can pull up now the free agent tight end list in the NFL. There are a lot of guys that, could potentially be options for the Ravens if Isaiah Likely does leave. Now, I don't know if it's okay if they re-sign Charlie Kolar. Could they just draft a mid-round tight end? And that's that, assuming Isaiah Likely does leave. I mean, they're going to have to figure it out. Travis Kelce, but that's Kansas City or bust, right? So David Njoku was one who got, Cleveland moved on. That's something that could be a potential option. Dallas Goedert is somebody that maybe could be re-signed in Philly, but could go somewhere else. I mean, then you have others like Zach Ertz and Austin Hooper. Noah Fant is a dart swing or a dart throw, but really it would come down to me to a guy like Njoku, maybe Tyler Higbee potentially if you want to vet in the building, but I mean, honestly, the path for the Ravens if Likely leaves is probably just Kolar and a mid-round tight end. I mean, that is probably what they would do. And the Ravens have been historically really good at doing that, drafting mid-round tight ends. I mean, that's where Likely came from. It's where Andrews came from. It's where Kolar came from. It's where Pitta and Dixon and all these guys came from. So, lots of different options for the Ravens. But, I mean, in reality, Isaiah Likely, the only way I could see Isaiah Likely staying in Baltimore is if the Ravens went to Isaiah Likely and said, Isaiah, re-sign with us on a 1-year contract. We'll give you a decent amount of money on that deal. The Ravens can get out of Mark Andrews' contract after next season. So the Ravens could say, just come back 1 more year, Mark and Isaiah, you two together, and then Mark gets cut after the 2026 season, and all of a sudden they say to Isaiah, okay, now it's your tight end room. Now you're the guy. because Isaiah wants to flourish. And I think if the Ravens say to Isaiah, maybe it's like a handshake thing of like, we're going to make sure you're the guy here in Baltimore after next season, but let's run it back for one more year and see what happens with the band back together. That's the only way I can see it. Outside of that, Isaiah wants to flourish. He wants to go be somewhere. Those are what his comments told me. Be somewhere that he can be the number one guy, have a role. He deserves that. And I think that even if he comes back to Baltimore one more year, he'll be able to up his value maybe a little bit more, even get a better deal than he could this offseason, because last year was a down year in general for him. So that's the only way I can see likely coming back. That's my scenario. But seems like a pretty big dart throw for me. That's the phrase of the day here on Locked On Ravens PM, dart throw. So feels like likely's out the door. That's not a surprise to anybody. These updates keep coming in. I mean, you can see a lot of different options, but again, I said this on the show earlier in the week. I'd just be sick if the Ravens cut Mark Andrews after next season and Isaiah Likely's somewhere else flourishing. And it's just like, well, 1 year too late again for a couple of other things that's happened for Baltimore. So I'm hoping that it can work out, but my hopes are not very high for Isaiah coming back to the Ravens. So I have you here today, though, on this Locked On Ravens PM edition of the show. Thanks so much for tuning in on the way out. Be sure to like and subscribe button in video form and follow along and subscribe in audio form for 5 days a week, plus more of daily Ravens coverage. Coming up, we'll have the squad show later tonight, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, and then we'll be back in the morning for Locked On Ravens. So be sure to stay tuned, and I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.